In this video, I will be discussing the concept of finding a fraction of a fraction. This is related to fraction multiplication and can be a concept that is hard to illustrate visually. I will walk you through a few examples and also have spots in the video for you to try it on your own by pausing the video. So go ahead and grab a pencil and paper and let's get started. Here I need to find 1/2 of 1/3. Now one might be tempted to immediately think, oh, this is 1/2, but that is not what is being asked here. We don't want to know half of 1. What is really being asked is what is half of 1/3 of 1. So here I have one whole and I'm going to partition it into thirds like this. Then I'm going to shade in one of those thirds to represent 1/3 of this entire whole. I'm drawing the 1/3 first because the problem is phrased half of 1/3. So I need the 1/3 before I can find half of it. So now that I have this 1/3, I'm going to find half of it by splitting it in two horizontally like this, with 1/2 up here on the top and 1/2 over here on the bottom. And since I only need half of the 1/3, I'm going to shade in this top half pink to show the quantity that is half of 1/3. In order to figure out how much this is in relation to the whole, I'm going to extend my line all the way across like this to break the whole into sixths, and now I can see that the pink portion is 1/6 of the entire whole. So half of 1/3 is 1/6. Let's look at another example. Here it is asking for 1/6 of 1/4. I'm going to start with this whole and partition it into fourths like this. Then I will shade in one of the fourths to represent 1/4 of the entire whole. To find 1/6 of this 1/4, I'm going to split it into 6 like this, where I have 1/6 here, 1/6 here, and so on. And I'm going to shade in one of them to show 1/6 of the 1/4. In order to figure out how much that is in relation to the entire whole, I'm going to extend the lines all the way out and break this whole into 20/4. And now I can see that this pink portion is 1/24 of the entire whole. So 1/6 of 1/4 is 1/24. For this next example, I want you to try to model it on your own before I discuss it. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, how did it go? I hope you were able to come up with something you feel good about, but if not, we're going to go over it. First, I'm going to go through modeling 1/3 of 1/4 the way we have discussed doing so in this video thus far, and then I will talk about another way it could have been done. So to start, I am going to partition the whole into fourths and then shade in one of them to make 1/4. Then I slice horizontally to make thirds with 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and 1/3 here, and I'll shade in one of those to show 1/3 of 1/4. In order to figure out how much that is in relation to the entire whole, I will extend my lines and make the whole 12th, and I can now see that the pink portion is 1/12 of the entire whole. So 1/3 of 1/4 is 1/12. Now, you may be wondering why I am representing a fraction of a fraction using this method of horizontal and vertical lines and not some other method, maybe even one that you have used before. This method is certainly not the only correct way of doing it, but it is one that consistently works well. For example, another way of modeling 1/3 of 1/4 is to only partition vertically. To do this, I start the same way by splitting the whole into fourths and then shading in 1/4. But then, instead of slicing into thirds horizontally like I was doing before, I slice vertically and split the 1/4 into thirds this way, where 1/3 of the 4th is here, 1/3 of the 4th is here, and 1/3 of the 4th is here, and then I shade in one of them to show 1/3 of the 1/4. To see how much that is in relation to the entire whole, I have to repeat the vertical slicing in each of the fourths. So you have 3 in this one, 3 in this one, and 3 in this one, and this helps me see that this pink portion is 1/12 of the entire whole. And as you can see, this way of modeling does in fact work, but without a computer software like the one I'm using, or with larger fractions, it can be less convenient to draw. Now I'm going to move on to finding a fraction of a fraction when both fractions are not unit fractions. In the previous examples, I only worked with unit fractions, so make sure to review the previous information again if you're still confused before moving on in the video. Okay, let's look at 1/3 of 2/3. I can start like usual by partitioning the whole into thirds, but now I'm going to shade in 2 parts to show 2/3 of the whole. From there, I want to find 1/3 of this amount, so I'm going to slice horizontally across the entire orange section here to see that this is a third across here, this is a third, and this is a third, and I'm going to shade in one of those thirds in pink. As you can see, this is the same as what we did with the unit fractions examples, but here it looks a little different because my 1/3 crosses into 2 original sections, whereas before it only went across 1. Then, as usual, in order to figure out how much this is of the entire whole, I'm going to extend my lines all the way across and break the whole into ninths. And I can see that the pink portion is 2/9 of the entire whole. So 1/3 of 2/3 is 2/9. For this next example, I want you to try and model it on your own first, then I will talk about it. So go ahead and pause now. Okay, let's go through the ways of modeling this. One way to do it is the main way we have discussed in this video so far. I split the whole into thirds, and then I shade in 2 of the thirds to make 2/3. From there, I slice horizontally to make fourths, being across here with a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, and a fourth, and shade in 1/4 of those in pink to show 1/4 of the 2/3. In order to find what that is in relation to the whole, I need to extend my lines to make 12ths, and I see that 1/4 of 2/3 is 2/12, like this, and you may notice that 2/12 can be simplified to 1/6. This stems from the relationship of the 4 in 1/4 and the 2 in 2/3, and actually lends itself to another way of modeling a fraction of a fraction. In this way of modeling, you start the same way by splitting the whole into thirds and then shading in 2 of the thirds to make 2/3. From there, though, instead of slicing horizontally to make 4 rows, you simply slice the 2/3 in half, like this, in order to make fourths where 1/4 is here, 1/4 is here, 1/4 is here, and 1/4 is here. Then you shade in one of those fourths to show 1/4 of the entire 2/3. Finally, to find what this is in relation to the whole, I extend the lines to make sixths and see that 1/4 of 2/3 is 1/6 of the entire whole. Now, thinking back to the previous slide, if I shift this amount from sixths like this, and I make it into 12ths like that, you can see that the pink amount is the same, whether it's 1/6 as a big square or 2/12 as these 2 pieces. But the way it's measured in relation to the whole is what changed when the fraction was simplified, and that's why these 2 drawings were different. For the final portion of this video, I'm going to discuss finding a fraction of a fraction when neither of the fractions are unit fractions. We will start with this example that asks 3/4 of 3/5. I'll partition the whole like this into fifths, and like usual, shade in 3 of those fifths to make 3/5. From there, I'm going to slice horizontally so that the 3/5 is now broken into fourths, with 1/4 across here, 1/4 here, 1/4 here, and 1/4 here. Then I need to shade in 3 of those fourths to show 3/4 of the 3/5. So you can see here that I have the original 3/5, that orange part that is shaded over, and now in pink I have 3/4 of that amount. Like usual, I'm going to extend my lines all the way out, and if I count all this up, I get 9 out of 20, so 3/4 of 3/5 is 9/20. For this next problem, I'd like you to try and model 4/5 of 2/3 on your own first. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, I know the drawing is a little more complex than in the beginning examples, so let's talk about it. To start, you can split the whole into thirds and then shade in 2/3 to show 2/3 of the whole like usual. From there, that area is split into fifths, and 4 of those fifths are shaded in like this. The pink shows 4/5 of the 2/3, which, if you extend the lines all the way across, is 8/15 of the entire whole. So 4/5 of 2/3 is 8/15. Go ahead and check this model with the one that you drew and see if they match. To wrap up all of this, let's return to the first example, 1/2 of 1/3. We discussed that this question is asking us to find a fraction of a fraction, and in order to do so, we must understand that 1/2 of 1/3 is really 1/2 of 1/3 of 1. And when we think of it this way, we can make sense of the answer 1/6, because when we have 1/3 like this, and we take 1/2 of it like that, it is 1/6 of the entire whole. So 1/2 of 1/3 is 1/6, and this 1/6 is referring to 1/6 of 1. That is 1/6 of the entire whole. I hope this video has been helpful for you. To learn more about how finding a fraction of a fraction relates to fraction multiplication, please watch another video provided to you titled, "Why Does Of Mean Multiply?"